Amber found the door because she was doing her job too well. The mansion was quiet in the way expensive things are quiet. Thick rugs swallowing footsteps, high ceilings absorbing sound, the kind of silence that made her feel like an intruder even when she was supposed to be there. She pushed her cleaning cart down the east corridor, past portraits of stern-faced men who looked like they'd sentenced people to death before breakfast. Definitely not the kind of ancestors who baked cookies. The agency had given her 3 rules when they assigned her to Aldo Baresi's estate. Don't ask questions. Don't enter locked rooms. Don't be memorable. Amber was excellent at the first 2. The third was harder when you had a mouth that ran commentary on everything your brain tried to suppress. She stopped at the tall wardrobe positioned against the north wall, mahogany, ornate, the kind of furniture that screamed old money and don't touch me. It was beautiful. It was also completely out of place. Wardrobes belonged in bedrooms, not hallways. Amber frowned, running her duster along the carved edge. The wood was cool beneath her yellow gloves, smooth except for a small indentation near the base that felt wrong. Not decorative. Functional. Her finger pressed it before her brain caught up. Click. The sound was soft but definitive, like a lock disengaging. Amber's pulse kicked into her throat as the entire wardrobe shifted. Not much, just an inch, but enough to reveal a seam in the wall behind it that hadn't been there before. Oh no. Oh no, no, no. She should walk away. Should pretend she'd seen nothing, finish her shift, collect her paycheck and never come back. That would be the smart choice, the survival choice. Instead, Amber set down her duster and pressed her palm against the panel. The wall opened, not dramatically, no grinding gears or ominous creaking. Just a smooth, silent swing inward, revealing a narrow doorway swallowed by darkness. The air that escaped was cooler, heavier, carrying the faint scent of paper and something metallic. Amber's mouth went dry. Be honest, if you found a hidden room in a powerful man's mansion, would you close the door and pretend you never saw it, or would curiosity get the better of you? Also comment where you're watching from. Let's connect in the comments. This is how people die in movies. This exact moment. Girl finds secret door. Girl goes inside. Girl becomes headline. She pulled out her phone. Checked the time. 2 hours left in her shift. The estate manager wouldn't check on her until she was done. No one else worked this wing on Tuesdays. She was alone. Completely, utterly alone. Perfect time to make catastrophically bad decisions. Amber stepped inside. The room was smaller than she expected, maybe 12 feet square, but every inch of it screamed purpose. No windows. A single overhead light, motion activated, flickering to life the moment she crossed the threshold. 3 walls covered floor to ceiling with maps, photographs, and documents pinned in meticulous rows. The 4th wall held a desk, sleek and modern, with a laptop closed on its surface and a stack of files arranged with surgical precision. This wasn't a storage room. This was a war room. Amber moved closer, her breath shallow, eyes scanning the walls. The maps showed cities, Milan, Naples, New York, Los Angeles, with routes marked in red ink. The photographs were surveillance shots, men in expensive suits, blurry figures entering buildings, license plates circled in marker. Names were written beside some of the photos in handwriting so controlled it looked printed, targeted, confirmed, eliminated. Her stomach twisted. Okay, so this is definitely a murder room. Cool. Great. Exactly what I needed today. But something didn't add up. The men in the photos weren't random. Amber recognized 2 faces from news reports. Human traffickers arrested last year. Another had been linked to a drug cartel that operated out of Eastern Europe. These weren't victims. They were predators. And someone had been hunting them. Amber's gaze drifted to the desk. The top file was labeled in English. Not Italian. Project Nightfall. Active targets. She hesitated, then opened it. Inside were pages of research, addresses, financial records, surveillance logs, all documenting the movements of a trafficking network operating along the East Coast. Notes were scribbled in the margins in that same precise hand. Warehouse confirmed. 3 exits. Children moved Thursday nights. Financial backer identified. Senator's son. Leverage acquired, extraction scheduled. 0 casualties except targets. Amber's breath caught. This wasn't evidence of crimes. This was evidence of justice. The kind delivered outside courtrooms, outside laws. Oh my God, he's not just Mafia, he's hunting monsters. The realization settled over her like cold water. Aldo Baresi wasn't just a kingpin managing territories and collecting debts. He was running a private war against the kind of people even other criminals feared, and she'd just stumbled into the nerve center of it. This is bad. This is so bad. Amber stepped backward, suddenly desperate to leave, to unsee, to rewind the last 5 minutes of her life. Her heel caught on the edge of the rug. She stumbled. Her hand shot out, grabbing the desk for balance. The laptop shifted, its screen tilting upward. A camera lens stared back at her. Active. Recording. Oh no. The door behind her closed, not slammed. Just a soft, deliberate click that sounded like a sentence. Amber spun around, heart hammering, and found herself staring at a man she'd only ever seen from a distance. Aldo Baresi stood in the doorway, dark eyes locked on her, expression unreadable. He didn't shout, didn't move fast, didn't need to. He was maybe 6'2", broad-shouldered, wearing a tailored black suit that fit him like a threat. His hair was dark, pushed back from a face that could have been carved from stone, all sharp angles and controlled power. He looked like the kind of man who'd never raised his voice in his life, because he didn't have to. Amber's brain short-circuited somewhere between run and apologize, and landed on, "Well," she said weakly, still holding her duster like a weapon, "this definitely wasn't on the cleaning checklist." Aldo's jaw tightened. He stepped inside. The door closed behind him. "No," he said quietly, his voice low and even, with just a trace of an Italian accent threading through the English. "It was not." Amber's pulse was so loud she was sure he could hear it. She forced herself to meet his gaze, even though every survival instinct screamed at her to look away. "I didn't mean to—" "You opened the door," he interrupted. "You stepped inside? You looked at my work?" His eyes didn't leave hers. "Which part was accidental?" "Fair point." "The part where I thought it was a linen closet?" She tried. His expression didn't shift. Not anger, not amusement, just cold, terrifying focus. "Do you know who I am?" he asked. "Aldo Baresi." Her voice came out steadier than she felt. "You own this house. You employ people who don't ask questions. And yet you are here, asking." "I wasn't asking. I was accidentally discovering. The result is the same." Amber swallowed. "Look, I'll leave. I'll quit. I'll forget I ever saw—" "No." The word landed like a door locking. Aldo moved closer, not fast, not threatening, just inevitable. He stopped 3 feet away, close enough for Amber to see the faint scar above his left eyebrow, the way his eyes tracked every micro-expression on her face. "You cannot forget what you have seen," he said, "and I cannot let you leave until I know what you will do with that knowledge." "I won't do anything," Amber said quickly. "I swear, I don't know anything. I'm nobody." "You are a woman standing in a room no one enters and survives by accident." His voice was quiet, calm, absolute. "That makes you far from nobody." Amber's breath hitched. "Oh God, he's going to kill me. He's going to kill me in his secret murder room and no one will ever find my body." "Please," she whispered, "I won't tell anyone. I don't even know anyone to tell." Aldo studied her for a long, unbearable moment. Then he said something that terrified her more than any threat could have. "Good. Then you will not mind staying close. Amber didn't move, couldn't move. Her brain was screaming at her to run, to explain, to do literally anything other than stand frozen in the middle of a secret room, staring at a man who looked like he'd never made an impulsive decision in his life. You will not mind staying close. What did that even mean? Close to what? The room? The house? Him? Aldo Barisi stood between her and the only exit, hands relaxed at his sides, expression carved from granite. He didn't look angry, didn't look surprised. He looked like a man who'd expected this exact moment and had already decided how it would end. That should have terrified her. It did terrify her. I don't understand, Amber managed, hating how small her voice sounded. You will. Aldo's gaze shifted past her, scanning the room with the kind of familiarity that came from building something with your own hands. First, tell me what you saw. Nothing. I didn't see anything. His eyes returned to hers. Lying wastes time. Okay, new strategy. Amber forced herself to breathe, to think. Maps, photos, files, names I recognized from the news. And what conclusion did you draw? That you're either obsessed with true crime documentaries or… She stopped herself. Or, Aldo prompted, his voice dangerously soft, or you're hunting people. The words tumbled out before she could stop them. People who deserve it. Silence. Aldo didn't confirm, didn't deny. He just watched her with those dark, unreadable eyes, and Amber realized something that made her stomach drop. He already knew I was here. The camera. The one she'd knocked when she stumbled. It hadn't just turned on. It had been on. Oh my God, she whispered. You've been watching me this whole time. Not the entire time. Aldo stepped closer, one measured step that somehow closed all the distance between them. Only since you touched the mechanism. You let me come in here. I allowed you to make a choice. That's not a choice. Amber's fear sharpened into something closer to anger. That's a test I didn't know I was taking. And yet you passed. She blinked. What? You did not scream. You did not run. You did not immediately reach for your phone to document evidence. Aldo tilted his head slightly, studying her like she was a puzzle he hadn't expected to find interesting. You tried to understand. I was terrified. Yes, but you were also curious. His voice dropped lower. Curiosity is far more dangerous than fear, Miss Dykes. The use of her name, her full name, sent a chill down her spine. How do you know my name? I know everything about the people who enter my home. He gestured toward the desk where the laptop still sat, screen dark but somehow still watching. Amber Dykes, 24. Works for Summit Cleaning Services. No criminal record. No family in the city. You live alone in a studio apartment in Riverside, and you are consistently 15 minutes early to every job. Amber's mouth went dry. That's thorough, Aldo finished. I am always thorough. Of course he is. Of course the Mafia boss does background checks on his cleaning staff. So what now? Amber forced herself to meet his gaze. You know I've seen too much. I know you know I've seen too much. What happens next? That, Aldo said quietly, depends entirely on you. On me? You have a choice to make. Amber almost laughed. Would have, if her throat wasn't so tight. Let me guess. The choice is between keeping my mouth shut or staying where I can ensure you keep it shut. The words landed like a hand around her throat. Amber stared at him. You're not giving me a choice. You're giving me an ultimatum. I am giving you agency within limitations. Aldo's expression didn't shift. You can leave this house tonight, return to your apartment, your life. I will ensure you are protected from a distance. Protected from what? From the people who would be very interested to know someone accessed this room. Her pulse kicked. Are you saying I'm in danger? I am saying you were in danger the moment you stepped through that door. Whether you remain so depends on how visible you become. Amber processed that. And the second option? You stay here, under my roof, under my watch. He paused. Under my protection. As what? A prisoner? As someone I can guarantee will not be harmed. That's the same thing. No, Aldo said, his voice dropping into something that felt almost like honesty. A prisoner has no choice in the matter. You do. Amber wanted to argue, wanted to throw his logic back at him and demand real freedom, real safety, a real way out of this nightmare. But she wasn't stupid. Men like Aldo Baresi didn't make empty threats, and they didn't leave loose ends. If I leave, she said slowly, will I actually be safe? Or will I just think I'm safe until someone decides I'm not worth the risk? Aldo's silence was answer enough. Right. Amber's laugh came out bitter. So my choices are, stay here as your, house guest? Or leave and spend the rest of my life looking over my shoulder. Essentially, that's not a choice. It is the only one I can offer. She wanted to scream, wanted to throw something, wanted to rewind the last hour and make different decisions. Instead, she said, if I stay, what does that look like? You continue working, cleaning if you prefer, though I suspect you are capable of more. And when I'm not working? You remain within the estate. You do not leave without permission. You do not communicate with anyone outside without clearance. So, a prisoner, a protected asset. You're really selling this. Aldo's mouth almost twitched. I am not selling anything, Miss Dykes. I am stating terms. And if I refuse both options? The air in the room shifted, not violently, just colder. Aldo stepped closer, close enough that Amber could see the faint stubble along his jaw, the way his eyes tracked every breath she took. Then I will do what is necessary to ensure my work remains secure. His voice was still calm, still controlled, still absolutely terrifying. And you will not enjoy the outcome. Amber's heart slammed against her ribs. She believed him. Not because he was threatening her. He wasn't, not really, but because she could see it in his eyes. The quiet certainty of a man who had made impossible choices before and would make them again without hesitation. Okay, she whispered. Okay? I'll stay. Aldo searched her face. You are certain? No, but I'm not suicidal either. This time, his mouth did twitch, just barely. Pragmatic. Terrified, Amber corrected, but apparently that's close enough. It will suffice. He stepped back, giving her space she desperately needed. Amber sucked in air, trying to steady herself, trying to process the fact that she'd just agreed to become a live-in prisoner in a mansion owned by a man who hunted criminals for, what? Justice? Revenge? Sport? What have I done? You will be moved to the East Wing by tonight, Aldo said, his tone shifting back to business. Your belongings will be retrieved from your apartment. You will not need to return. Just like that? Just like that. And my job? My life? Your employer will be informed you have accepted a private contract. Your rent will be handled. You will not be missed. Amber stared at him. You've already planned this. I plan for every contingency, including me stumbling into your secret murder room? War room, Aldo corrected. And yes, of course he did. Amber should have been angry, should have fought harder, but exhaustion was creeping in, dulling the edges of her fear. Can I ask you something? She said quietly. You may ask. Why didn't you just kill me? Aldo's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes, something she couldn't name. Because, he said softly, I am not yet certain whether keeping you alive is a greater risk than letting you die. The words hung in the air between them. Amber's blood went cold. Aldo turned toward the door, his hand resting on the handle. He paused without looking back. "Sleep well, Miss Dykes," he said. "Tomorrow we will discuss what happens when you are no longer a variable." The door closed behind him, and Amber was left standing in the hidden room, heart pounding, finally understanding the truth. Aldo Barisi wasn't deciding whether to punish her. He was deciding whether to keep her. Amber woke up in a bedroom she didn't remember entering. For a disorienting moment, she thought she'd dreamed it all. The hidden room, the maps, Aldo Barisi's quiet threat, wrapped in the guise of protection. But then she registered the unfamiliar weight of Egyptian cotton sheets, the faint scent of cedar and expensive detergent, and the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking grounds she'd only ever seen from service entrances. This wasn't her apartment. This was the East Wing. Right, because I agreed to become a live-in liability. She sat up slowly, taking inventory. Her clothes from yesterday were folded on a chair she didn't recognize. Her phone sat on the nightstand, fully charged, which was somehow more unsettling than if it had been confiscated. A covered tray waited on the desk by the window. Breakfast, still warm. Someone had been in here while she slept. Amber's skin crawled. She checked her phone. No messages, no missed calls. But when she opened her banking app, her breath caught. Her rent had been paid, 3 months in advance. Her employer had sent a single email. Contract terms accepted. Effective immediately. Best of luck. He wasn't bluffing. Aldo Barisi had dismantled her entire life in less than 12 hours. The mansion felt different in daylight. Amber moved through hallways she'd cleaned a dozen times, but everything had shifted. Doors that were always locked now stood open. Rooms she'd never been allowed to enter were suddenly on her rotation. The estate manager who usually monitored her work was nowhere to be found. She was alone, except she wasn't. Amber felt it in the prickling awareness between her shoulder blades. The sense of being tracked even when no one was visible. Twice she caught the faint reflection of a security camera in polished surfaces she'd missed before. Once she heard footsteps behind her that stopped the moment she turned around. No one was there, but someone had been. This is what it feels like to be prey. She pushed her cart into the library, a room she'd been explicitly forbidden from cleaning before. Now the door was propped open, an unspoken invitation. Or a test. The space was stunning. Floor-to-ceiling shelves, leather-bound books in Italian and English, a massive desk positioned near the window. Everything was meticulously organized except for one detail. A file folder sat open on the desk. Amber's name was printed on the tab. Her heart kicked into her throat. Don't touch it. Do not touch it. This is exactly the kind of trap that gets people killed in movies. She gripped her duster tighter and forced herself to move to the shelves. Dust the books, straighten the chairs, ignore the folder that was absolutely, definitely left there on purpose, but her eyes kept drifting back. The top page was visible from where she stood, not enough to read clearly, but enough to see it was a background check. Thorough, invasive. He knows everything. Amber turned her back on the desk and focused on the bookshelf. Her hands shook slightly as she wiped down the spines, careful not to disturb the order. Don't look. Don't touch. Don't give him a reason to... You are more disciplined than I expected. Amber spun around. Aldo stood in the doorway, hands in his pockets, expression unreadable. He looked like he'd been there for a while. Watching. Of course he was. I'm just doing my job, Amber said, hating how breathless she sounded. Your job does not require you to ignore useful information. My job requires me not to snoop. And yet you did. Yesterday. Amber's jaw tightened. Yesterday was an accident. Was it? Aldo moved into the room with that same unhurried control, circling the desk without touching the file. You opened a hidden door. You stepped inside a restricted space. You examined confidential materials. He stopped, dark eyes locking onto hers. Which part was accidental? All of it. None of it. I don't even know anymore. I didn't mean to see what I saw, Amber said carefully. But you did see it, and now you are here. Aldo gestured toward the open file. Tell me, Miss Dykes, why did you not read your own file just now? Because it's not mine to read? It concerns you. It's still not mine. Something shifted in his expression. Approval, maybe, or surprise. Hard to tell with a man whose face gave away nothing. Interesting, he said softly. What is? You respect boundaries when they are implied, but not when they are physical. Amber blinked. I don't... The hidden room had a door, a lock, clear architectural separation. Aldo's voice remained calm, almost conversational. And yet you entered. This file has none of those things. It sits in plain view, easily accessible, and you will not touch it. Because you're standing right there. I was standing outside the hidden room as well. You simply did not know it yet. Her stomach dropped. He knew. The whole time, he knew. Why? Amber's voice came out sharper than she intended. Why let me find it if you were just going to? I did not let you find it. I allowed you to make a choice. Aldo tilted his head slightly. There is a difference. Not from where I'm standing. No, he agreed. I imagine not. Silence stretched between them. Amber wanted to look away, to break the intensity of his gaze, but something stubborn in her refused to back down. If I'm going to be stuck here, I'm not going to spend every second cowering. What do you want from me? She asked quietly. Honesty. I've been honest. Have you? Aldo's eyes narrowed slightly. You claim the discovery was accidental, yet you stayed in that room long enough to understand its purpose. You read files, you examined photographs. You pieced together conclusions most people would not dare to speak aloud. He paused. That is not the behavior of someone who stumbled into the wrong closet. Amber's pulse hammered. I was trying to figure out if I was in danger. And what did you conclude? That you're not what people think you are. Aldo went very still. And what do people think I am? A criminal, a killer, a man who takes what he wants without consequences. And you believe differently? Amber hesitated. This felt like another test, another invisible line she could cross without realizing, until it was too late. I think, she said slowly, that you're doing something everyone else is too afraid to do, and I think you don't want anyone to know about it because the moment they do, it stops working. The silence that followed was absolute. Aldo stared at her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. Not anger, something else, something she couldn't name. You are either remarkably perceptive, he said finally, or dangerously naive. Can't I be both? His mouth almost curved. Perhaps. He moved toward the door, then stopped. The file stays closed, he said without looking back. But if you wish to know what is inside, you may ask me directly. And you'll tell me? I will tell you what I believe you need to know. That's not the same thing. No, Aldo agreed. It is not. He left. Amber stood alone in the library, heart still racing, staring at the file she absolutely should not open. She didn't. Instead, she finished cleaning, returned her cart to the service hall, and made her way back to the East Wing. Her new room was exactly as she'd left it, except for one addition. A framed photograph sat on the nightstand. Amber picked it up with shaking hands. It was her, younger, maybe 19, standing outside a small bookstore she used to work at before she'd moved to the city. She was laughing at something off-camera, hair caught mid-motion by the wind. She'd never seen this photo before, had never known it existed, but Aldo had it. Amber turned it over. On the back, in that same precise handwriting she'd seen in the hidden room, was a single line. You were worth watching long before you found the door. Amber didn't sleep. She sat on the edge of the unfamiliar bed, staring at the photograph until the words blurred together. You were worth watching long before you found the door. The implications crawled under her skin like insects. How long had he been watching? Months? Years? And why her, a nobody cleaning houses to pay rent she could barely afford? This is insane. This is actually insane. By the time dawn crept through the windows, Amber had made a decision. She was going to confront him, demand answers, draw a line. She made it as far as the hallway before she saw him. Aldo stood at the end of the corridor, coffee in hand, looking like he'd been waiting. He didn't startle when she appeared, didn't acknowledge her directly, just turned toward the staircase with the clear expectation that she would follow. Amber's carefully rehearsed speech died in her throat. She followed. He led her to a sitting room she'd cleaned once, weeks ago, back when she'd still believed this was just a job. The space was elegant, understated, the kind of room designed for quiet conversations that shaped empires. Aldo gestured toward a chair. Amber didn't sit. "You've been watching me." "Yes." No denial, no justification, just calm acknowledgement. "For how long?" "Long enough." "That's not an answer. It is the only one you need." Aldo set his coffee down, dark eyes settling on her with that unnerving focus. "You are intelligent, Miss Dykes. You notice details others overlook. You adapt quickly, and you do not panic when most people would." "So you stalked me?" "I researched you." "There is a difference." "Not from where I'm standing." "No," he agreed. "I imagine not." Amber crossed her arms, trying to hold on to her anger even as exhaustion pulled at her. "What do you want from me?" "Today? I need you to clean the West study." She blinked. "That's it? That is all? You dragged me down here at dawn to assign me a cleaning task?" "I did not drag you anywhere. You followed." Aldo's voice remained maddeningly even. "The study needs to be prepared for a meeting this afternoon. You will ensure it is presentable." "I'm a housekeeper. That's literally my job." "Yes, and you will do it well." He paused. "There are files on the desk. Leave them exactly as they are. Do not read them. Do not move them. Do not allow anyone else to enter while you work." Amber frowned. "Why would anyone else?" "Because the staff has been informed the room is occupied." Aldo's gaze sharpened. "You are the exception." "Oh, this wasn't about cleaning. This was about trust. Or a test. Probably both." "And if someone tries to come in anyway?" Amber asked carefully. "You will inform me immediately." "How?" "You're not exactly handing out your personal number." Aldo reached into his pocket and produced a phone, sleek, black, clearly expensive. He held it out. Amber stared at it. "What is this?" "A phone. I have a phone. This one reaches me directly, no intermediaries, no delays." He placed it on the table between them. "Keep it with you." Amber's pulse kicked. "This feels like more than just cleaning." "It is. So what am I actually doing?" "Your job." Aldo's voice dropped slightly. "With discretion." "Right. Because that's totally not ominous." But Amber picked up the phone anyway. The West study was pristine, or it would have been if not for the controlled chaos on the desk. Files stacked in deliberate disorder, maps spread across the surface with pins marking locations Amber didn't recognize. A laptop open to a screen full of encrypted files she absolutely should not try to access, and at the center of it all, a single folder marked Priority. Amber's fingers itched to open it. She didn't. Instead, she focused on the periphery, dusting shelves, straightening chairs, replacing the water carafe, the kind of invisible work that made spaces functional without being noticed. But her eyes kept drifting back to the desk. Something was off. The files were stacked deliberately, yes, but the angles were wrong, like someone had searched through them and tried to put them back in the exact same order but failed. Amber stopped dusting. She studied the desk from 3 different angles, comparing the positions to the faint dust outlines beneath each stack. Someone had moved the priority folder. Recently. And whoever did it had tried very hard to make it look untouched. Should I tell him? The phone in her pocket felt like it weighed 10 pounds. It's probably nothing. Maybe Aldo moved it himself. Maybe I'm being paranoid. But the dust didn't lie. And Aldo Baresi didn't strike her as the kind of man who left things out of place by accident. Amber pulled out the phone. One contact. No name. Just a number. She pressed call. He answered on the first ring. Yes. Someone's been in this room, Amber said quietly. Recently. They went through the files on the desk. Silence. Then, you are certain. The folder marked priority was moved. Whoever put it back didn't match the dust pattern. How long ago? Within the last few hours. The disturbance is fresh. Another pause. Longer this time. Lock the door, Aldo said. Do not let anyone in until I arrive. The line went dead. Amber's hands shook as she crossed to the door and turned the lock. The click echoed too loud in the quiet room. What did I just do? Aldo arrived 7 minutes later. He didn't knock. The lock disengaged with a soft beep. Keycard access Amber hadn't known existed, and he stepped inside with 2 men she didn't recognize. His gaze swept the room, cataloging everything in seconds, before landing on Amber. Show me. She pointed to the desk. The priority folder. It's been moved. Aldo crossed to the desk, studied the files with the same intensity he'd used on her earlier. Then he opened the priority folder. His expression didn't change, but the air in the room shifted. Leave us, he said quietly. The 2 men exited without question. Amber stayed frozen, unsure if the command included her. Aldo closed the folder. You were right. About what? Someone accessed this room, someone with clearance. His voice was dangerously calm. Someone who should not have been here. Amber's stomach dropped. What was in that folder? A list? Of what? People under my protection. Aldo's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. People who would be at significant risk if that information reached the wrong hands. Oh, God. Did they? No. They opened the folder but did not photograph it. Likely ran out of time. Aldo's dark eyes locked onto hers. Because you noticed before they could finish. The weight of that statement settled over Amber like concrete. What would have happened, she whispered, if I hadn't called you? Aldo didn't answer immediately. When he did, his voice was quieter than she'd ever heard it. People would have died, Miss Dykes. Good people. People who trusted me to keep them safe. Amber's breath caught. And the person who did this, she managed, will be handled. The finality in his tone made it clear what handled meant. Aldo moved toward the door, then paused without looking back. You did well today. It wasn't praise. It was acknowledgement. Somehow that felt more significant. Aldo. Yes? Amber swallowed. What am I really doing here? He turned slightly, just enough for her to see his profile. Surviving, he said, and proving you are worth the risk I took keeping you alive. The door closed behind him. Amber stood alone in the study, staring at the desk where a folder had almost destroyed lives she'd never meet. She'd thought she was just cleaning. She'd been wrong. She'd just prevented a massacre, and she hadn't even realized it until it was already done. Amber was beginning to understand something deeply unsettling about Aldo Baresi. He didn't warn people about danger. He placed them inside it and watched what they did. The assignment came through a text on the phone he'd given her. North Wing, 3rd floor, Guest Suite 7. Prepare it for use by 3 p.m. No context, no explanation, just coordinates and a deadline. Amber stared at the message, unease prickling at the base of her skull. The North Wing was closed off. Had been since she'd started working here. She'd asked about it once and been told in no uncertain terms that it was off limits. Now, apparently, it wasn't. This feels like a trap. But she went anyway. The North Wing was colder than the rest of the mansion. Not temperature, though that was lower too, but atmosphere. The hallways were narrower, the windows smaller. The silence heavier. This part of the house felt abandoned, like it had been sealed off and forgotten. Amber's footsteps echoed too loud on the hardwood. Guest Suite 7 was at the end of the corridor, door slightly ajar. She pushed it open with her cart, scanning the room out of habit. Dust covered every surface. The bed was stripped. The curtains were drawn. No one had been in this room for months. So why does it need to be ready in 2 hours? Amber set to work, unease growing with every passing minute. The mansion was never this quiet. There were always sounds, footsteps, voices, the distant hum of security moving through the grounds. Now, there was nothing. She was halfway through making the bed when she heard it. Footsteps, not the controlled, measured gait of Aldo's men. These were heavier, uncertain. Like someone unfamiliar with the layout. Amber froze, sheets still clutched in her hands. The footsteps stopped outside the door. "Anyone in here?" A man's voice, rough, American accent, not Italian. Wrong. This is wrong. Amber's mind raced. Aldo's staff didn't ask questions. They moved with purpose, silent and efficient. And they sure as hell didn't wander into closed wings asking if anyone was home. "Just cleaning," she called out, keeping her voice steady. Casual. The door opened wider. The man who stepped inside was tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a suit that didn't quite fit right, expensive fabric, cheap tailoring. His eyes swept the room with the calculated focus of someone casing a location, and his hand rested too casually near his jacket, where a gun would be. Oh no. "Didn't realize anyone was working up here," he said, smile not reaching his eyes. "Last-minute request," Amber replied, forcing herself to keep moving, to smooth the sheets like this was normal. "You looking for someone?" "Just getting a feel for the place." He stepped farther inside. "You work for Baresi?" "I work for the estate." "Same thing." "Not really." His smile sharpened. "You got a mouth on you. And you've got a gun you think I haven't noticed." Amber's pulse hammered, but she kept her hands steady. "I've got work to do. You need something specific or—" "Just curious." He moved toward the window, pulling back the curtain to look out at the grounds. "Big place. Easy to get lost." "If you don't know where you're going—" He glanced back at her. "You always this sharp?" "Only on Tuesdays." "Shut up. Stop talking. Just finish and get out." But leaving now would look like panic. And panic would confirm she knew something was wrong. So Amber kept working. She dusted the nightstand, straightened the pillows, ignored the way he watched her with the kind of attention that had nothing to do with curiosity and everything to do with assessment. "Baresi around?" he asked casually. "Couldn't tell you." "You don't know." "I don't ask." Amber met his gaze. "Not my business." "Smart." He nodded slowly. "A lot of people forget that. Start asking questions. Get curious." His hand drifted closer to his jacket. "Usually doesn't end well." The threat was barely veiled. Amber's throat went dry, but she forced a shrug. "Then it's lucky I'm not curious." "Yeah." His eyes narrowed. "Lucky." The silence stretched. Amber could feel the weight of decision pressing down on her, run and confirm she knew he didn't belong here. Or stay and hope he left before whatever he was planning went into motion. What would Aldo do? The answer came immediately. He'd wait. Watch. Gather information. So Amber kept cleaning. She moved to the closet, opening it to check for linens, giving herself an excuse to turn her back on him. In the mirror inside the closet door, she watched his reflection. He pulled out his phone, typed something quickly, glanced toward the hallway, waiting for someone. He's not alone. Amber's stomach dropped. She finished with the closet, turned back to the room, and found Aldo standing in the doorway. She didn't jump, didn't gasp. But her heart slammed against her ribs so hard she was sure everyone could hear it. Aldo's gaze swept the room, landing on the intruder with the kind of calm that preceded violence. "You are lost," he said quietly. Not a question. The man's hand moved toward his jacket. "I would not," Aldo said, voice dropping lower, colder. Two of Aldo's men appeared in the hallway behind him, silent, armed. The intruder's hand froze. "Out," Aldo said. "Now." The man's jaw tightened, but he moved, slowly, deliberately, like he wanted to make it clear he was leaving by choice, not force. Aldo didn't move, didn't even blink, just watched. The moment the intruder crossed the threshold, Aldo's men closed in. The sounds that followed were brief, muffled impact, a choked grunt, then nothing. Aldo stepped inside the room, closed the door, turned to Amber. "You stayed," he said. Not a question, an observation. "I was working," Amber managed, voice steadier than she felt. "You were bait." The words hit like a slap. Amber stared at him. "What?" "He was looking for access to this wing. I gave him one." Aldo's dark eyes locked onto hers. You used me?" "I tested you." "That's the same thing." "No." Aldo stepped closer, not threatening, just inevitable. "Using you would have meant I left you unprotected. I did not. You weren't even here. I was 3 rooms away, watching." He gestured toward a corner of the ceiling where a tiny camera lens glinted. "I heard every word. If he had touched you, he would have been dead before his hand left his jacket." Amber's breath came short and fast. "You could have told me." "If I had told you, you would have behaved differently. He would have known." Aldo's voice remained maddeningly calm. "You stayed because you believed you had to. That made you convincing. I stayed because I didn't want to die." "Precisely." She wanted to scream, to throw something, to demand he explain why he thought risking her life was an acceptable way to test her loyalty, or intelligence, or whatever the hell this was. Instead, she forced herself to breathe, to think. "What did you learn?" she asked quietly. Aldo tilted his head slightly. "That you do not panic, that you read situations quickly, that you know when to speak and when to stay silent." He paused. "And that you understand the difference between bravery and survival." "Is there one?" "Yes. Bravery gets people killed. Survival requires intelligence." His gaze sharpened. "You have the latter." It wasn't a compliment. It was a fact. And facts, Amber was learning, were far more dangerous than praise. "What happened to him?" she asked. "The man who was in here. He is being questioned. And after that, he will no longer be a problem." The clinical delivery made it worse somehow. Amber wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly cold. "You're going to keep doing this, aren't you? Putting me in situations without warning. Testing me." Aldo didn't deny it. "Why?" "Because the moment you saw that room, you became part of something you cannot leave. And I need to know." He stopped, corrected himself. "I need to be certain you can survive what comes next." "What comes next?" "That depends on you." Amber's laugh came out bitter. "Nothing about this depends on me." "You are wrong." Aldo moved toward the door, then paused. "You survived today because you listened. You observed. You did not assume you knew more than you did." He opened the door, looked back. "Next time, survival will depend on obedience." The door closed. Amber stood alone in the guest suite, heart still racing, finally understanding the truth. There would be a next time, and another, and another. Because Aldo Barisi didn't keep liabilities. He kept assets, and she'd just proven she was worth keeping. Amber found him in the library, not by accident, not because she stumbled into the right room at the right time. She went looking for him, walking through the mansion with the kind of deliberate purpose that made staff step aside without being asked. She was done waiting for Aldo Barisi to decide when she got answers. He sat at the desk by the window, reviewing documents with the same focused calm he brought to everything. He didn't look up when she entered, didn't acknowledge her presence at all, but she knew he'd heard her. "Was I supposed to be there?" Amber asked. No preamble, No hesitation. Aldo's pen paused mid-signature. He set it down carefully, aligned it with the edge of the paper, then finally looked up. Yes. The honesty was almost worse than a lie would have been. Amber's hands curled into fists at her sides. You put me in a room with an armed intruder on purpose. I put you in a controlled environment with calculated risk and constant surveillance. Aldo's voice remained maddeningly even. There is a difference. Not from where I was standing. No, he agreed. I imagine not. She wanted to yell, to demand he explain why he thought risking her life was acceptable. But shouting would give him power, the power to dismiss her as emotional, irrational, unable to handle what his world required. So she stayed calm. Why? She asked. Because I needed to know. Know what? If you could survive without instruction, without preparation, without me telling you what to do. Aldo leaned back slightly, dark eyes never leaving hers. Most people panic. They run, or they freeze, or they make themselves obvious. You did none of those things. I was terrified. I know. That is why it mattered. He paused. Terror without panic is rare, useful. Useful. The word landed like a stone in her chest. Is that what I am to you? Amber's voice stayed level. Useful? You are what you choose to be. That's not an answer. It is the only one I can give. Aldo stood, moving around the desk with that same unhurried control. You want clarity, Miss Dykes. You want me to define your role, to draw clear lines, to tell you exactly what is expected. He stopped a few feet away. I cannot do that. Why not? Because my world does not offer clarity. It offers choices. His gaze sharpened. And I need to know which ones you will make when no one is watching. Amber processed that. So, you test me. I observe you. By putting me in danger. By placing you in situations where survival depends on intelligence rather than luck. Aldo's voice dropped slightly. I do not send you into chaos unprepared. I send you into controlled environments where I can intervene if necessary. You mean if you decide to? Yes. The bluntness should have shocked her. It didn't, because Aldo Barisi had never lied to her. He'd withheld information, manipulated circumstances, orchestrated tests, but he'd never actually lied, and somehow that made him more dangerous. What happens if I fail one of these tests? Amber asked quietly. That depends on how you fail. Meaning? Failure through fear is forgivable. Failure through stupidity is not. He tilted his head slightly. You have yet to demonstrate either. It wasn't praise. It was assessment. Cold. Clinical. Absolute. Amber wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly aware of how isolated they were. The library door was closed. No staff lingered nearby. It was just the two of them, and the weight of everything she'd seen in the last week pressing down like gravity. I didn't ask for this, she said. No. You stumbled into it. Aldo's expression didn't soften. But you stayed. That was a choice. You didn't give me a real choice. I gave you the only choice that mattered. Leave and risk exposure, or stay and accept protection. His eyes held hers. You chose protection. Now you must decide if you can survive what it requires. Which is what exactly? Discretion, intelligence, the ability to function under pressure without breaking. He paused, and the understanding that the moment you saw that room, you became part of something far larger than yourself. Amber's throat tightened. I'm not a soldier. I'm not. You are exactly what you need to be when it matters. Aldo's voice remained quiet, but absolute. That is why you are still here. The silence that followed was heavy. Amber forced herself to breathe, to think past the fear and anger and confusion, to focus on the one thing that mattered. She was still alive because Aldo wanted her alive, and he wanted her alive because she'd proven she could be more than a liability, so use that. If you're going to keep testing me, Amber said carefully, I need to know when the danger is intentional. Aldo's expression shifted, barely, but she caught it. Surprise, maybe, or respect. You want advance warning. I want honesty. If I'm walking into a trap you designed, I deserve to know it's coming. Knowing defeats the purpose. Then change the purpose. Amber stepped closer, surprising herself with her own boldness. You want to know if I can think on my feet? Fine, but I'm not going to be your lab rat. If you need me to do something dangerous, tell me. Let me choose whether I'm capable. And if you refuse, then you'll know I'm not the asset you thought I was. Aldo went very still. The air between them thickened, charged with something Amber couldn't name. Not anger, not desire, something sharper, recognition. You are drawing a line, he said quietly. I'm stating terms. No one states terms to me, Miss Dykes. Then I'm the exception. Amber's pulse hammered, but she held his gaze. You've been watching me for months. You maneuvered me into your home. You tested me without warning. You've controlled every aspect of this situation from the beginning. Yes. So let me control one thing, my awareness. She paused. I won't fight your authority. I won't question your decisions. But I will not be used blindly, not anymore. The silence stretched so long Amber thought she'd miscalculated. Then Aldo moved. Not toward her, toward the desk. He opened a drawer, retrieved something small, and crossed back to where she stood. A key. He held it out. Amber stared at it. What is this? Access to the hidden room. Her breath caught. Why? Because you are no longer an accident I am managing. Aldo's dark eyes locked onto hers. You are a variable I am investing in. That's not, you want honesty. I am giving it to you. He placed the key in her palm, his fingers brushing hers for just a moment. Warm, deliberate. This key opens the door you were never meant to find. Now you may enter it whenever you choose. Amber's heart slammed against her ribs. Why would I want to? Because understanding what I do requires seeing all of it, not just the pieces I allow. His voice dropped lower. If you are going to survive in my world, you need to know what you are protecting, what you are part of. And if I don't want to be part of it, then give me back the key. Amber stared at the small piece of metal in her hand. This wasn't just access to a room. This was a choice. Stay ignorant and remain safe, or step deeper and accept everything that came with it. You're not giving me a choice, she said quietly. You're giving me an illusion of one. Aldo's mouth almost curved. Yes. Why? Because true choices require full knowledge. And now, he gestured toward the key. You have it. Amber closed her fingers around the metal. It was cold, heavy, final. If I use this, she said, there's no going back, is there? No. And if I don't? Then you remain where you are. Useful, protected, controlled. Aldo's gaze held hers, but no longer choosing. The weight of that distinction settled over her like a sentence. Amber looked at the key, at Aldo, at the closed library door and the mansion beyond it, a place that had become both prison and sanctuary in the span of a week. She slipped the key into her pocket. Aldo's expression shifted. Satisfaction, maybe approval. Hard to tell. Now you're choosing to stay, he said quietly. And Amber realized with cold, perfect clarity, he was right. Amber noticed the timing first. She was in the kitchen, early morning before most of the staff arrived, when she heard voices in the hallway. Not unusual, except these voices were speaking Italian, fast and low, and the cadence was wrong. Aldo's men didn't sound anxious. These men did. Amber set down her coffee and moved closer to the door, listening. Non dovrebbe essere qui. Barisi non sa. Barisi doesn't know, Her stomach dropped. She pulled out the phone Aldo had given her, finger hovering over his contact. But what would she say? That she'd overheard a conversation she didn't fully understand? That something felt wrong? Think. What did you actually hear? Someone wasn't supposed to be here. And whoever it was, Aldo didn't know about it. That was enough. Amber pressed call. He answered immediately. Yes. Someone's in the house who shouldn't be, she said quietly. Staff hallway, east entrance. They're speaking Italian. They sound nervous. Silence. Then, how many? 2 voices, maybe 3. Where are you? Kitchen. Lock the door. Do not leave until I tell you. The line went dead. Amber crossed to the kitchen door and turned the lock, heart hammering. Through the small window she could see the hallway. Empty now, but the voices had been real. She hadn't imagined them. What did I just do? Minutes crawled past. Then she heard it. Footsteps. Measured, controlled. Aldo's. A soft knock. It's me. Amber unlocked the door. Aldo stepped inside, followed by 2 of his men. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes swept the room with surgical precision before landing on her. You were right, he said quietly. There were 3 men. They were not supposed to be here. Who were they? That is being determined. His gaze sharpened. What made you call? They sounded wrong, and they said your name like they were afraid you'd find out they were here. Aldo's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. You understand Italian. No, but I understand fear. Something shifted in his expression. Approval, maybe respect. He turned to his men, issuing rapid instructions in Italian. They left immediately. Then it was just the 2 of them. This was not random, Aldo said. Someone sent them. To do what? To gather intelligence, or plant evidence, possibly both. He paused. If you had not noticed, but I did. Yes. His eyes held hers. You did. The weight of that acknowledgement settled between them. Amber wrapped her arms around herself. What happens now? Now we find out who sent them. And why. Aldo moved toward the door, then stopped. Stay in the East Wing today. Do not leave it for any reason. Am I in danger? Everyone in this house is in danger until I know who breached security. His voice dropped lower. But you are the only one I am personally ensuring stays safe. He left before she could respond. Amber didn't stay in the East Wing. Not because she was reckless, but because staying felt like hiding, and hiding meant she'd learned nothing from the last week. Instead, she went to the hidden room. The key Aldo had given her felt heavy in her pocket as she made her way through the mansion. Staff moved with unusual efficiency, eyes down, mouths shut. Whatever Aldo was doing, everyone knew to stay out of his way. The wardrobe mechanism opened smoothly now that she knew where to press. The door swung inward, and Amber stepped into the space that had started everything. It looked different in daylight, or what passed for daylight through the narrow window high on one wall. The maps were more detailed than she'd realized, the photographs more damning, and in the center of the desk sat a new file, marked Active Threat. Amber hesitated, then opened it. Inside were surveillance photos of 3 men, the ones she'd heard in the hallway. Notes detailed their arrival, their employer, their objective. They'd been sent to confirm whether Aldo was actively dismantling a trafficking network, and to eliminate him if he was. Amber's blood went cold. They weren't just gathering intelligence, they were here to kill him. She flipped through the rest of the file, looking for what? A plan? A countermeasure? Then she saw it. A schedule. Tonight. A meeting Aldo was supposed to attend, and a handwritten note in the margin. Compromised location. Do not proceed. But the note was recent, added within the last hour, judging by the ink. Had Aldo seen it? Amber checked her phone. No messages. She took a photo of the page and sent it to him with a single line. Did you see this? The response came 30 seconds later. Where are you? The room. Stay there." Aldo arrived 5 minutes later. He didn't look angry, didn't look surprised, just walked in, closed the door, and crossed to the desk where Amber stood. "I told you to stay in the East Wing," he said quietly. "I thought this was more important." He glanced at the file, then at her. "You read it. You gave me the key." "I assumed that meant I was allowed." "It did." Aldo's gaze lingered on her face, searching for something. "But most people would not have thought to check the room. They would have stayed hidden and hoped for safety." "I'm not most people." "No," he agreed. "You are not." He picked up the file, scanned the note she'd photographed. His expression didn't change, but his grip on the paper tightened slightly. "This meeting was a trap," he said. "I know." "If you had not sent this—" "But I did." Aldo set the file down, turned to face her fully. "You saved my life today, Miss Dykes." The words landed with the weight of a vow. Amber's breath caught. You noticed what others missed. You acted without instruction. You used the access I gave you to protect something larger than yourself." His voice dropped. "That is not insignificant. I didn't do it for— I know why you did it." Aldo stepped closer, not threatening, just inevitable. "You did it because you understand now what this room means, what I am doing, and what will happen if I fail." Amber swallowed. "People will die." "Yes." "Good people." "Yes." The silence stretched. Then Aldo did something that shocked her. He reached out, slowly, deliberately, and touched her hand. Just briefly, just enough to feel the warmth of skin on skin. "You are no longer an observer, Amber." Her name in his voice sounded different, intimate, dangerous. "You are part of this now." "I know." "Do you?" His eyes held hers. "Because what comes next will require more than intelligence. It will require trust." "In you?" "In both of us." Before Amber could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, expression hardening. "They are moving the meeting location," he said, attempting to force my hand. "What are you going to do?" "What I always do. Control the outcome." Aldo moved toward the door, then paused. "Come with me." "Where?" "Somewhere you can see what happens when someone threatens what is mine." The meeting room was in the south wing, a space Amber had never been allowed to enter. Now she stood beside Aldo as men in expensive suits filled the chairs around a polished table. She recognized none of them. They recognized her immediately, and they did not look pleased. One man, older, silver-haired, dangerous in the way only power could make someone, spoke first. "Baresi, you bring a civilian to a closed meeting?" "I bring who I choose," Aldo said calmly. "She is a liability." "She is under my protection." Aldo's voice didn't rise, didn't need to. "And if you question that again, you will find yourself answering for it." The room went silent. Amber felt every eye on her, assessing, calculating, dismissing. But Aldo's hand came to rest on the small of her back. Not possessive, not intimate. Claiming. "This is Amber Dykes," he said quietly. "She is part of my operation. She has my authority. And if any of you touch her—" His gaze swept the room. "You answer to me." The threat was delivered like a fact. Absolute. Final. Amber's heart slammed against her ribs. She wasn't hidden anymore. She was marked. The mansion changed overnight, not structurally, not visibly. But Amber felt it in the way staff moved around her, a fraction slower, eyes dipping just before meeting hers. Voices softening when she entered a room. They weren't afraid of her, they were afraid for her, or of what touching her would mean. Amber stood in the kitchen, coffee cooling in her hands, watching a junior staff member who used to chat with her now keep 3 feet of distance at all times. So this is what being claimed looks like. She'd expected cameras, surveillance, Aldo's men shadowing her movements. What she hadn't expected was the silence, the careful, deliberate erasure of casualness. No one bumped into her by accident anymore. No one asked her to pass the sugar or help with a tray. She'd become untouchable, not through elevation, but through association. And association with Aldo Baresi was a brand that didn't wash off. The consequence arrived quietly. Amber was in the library, her space now apparently, since staff no longer cleaned it when she was present, when she overheard 2 guards speaking outside the door. DeMarco was removed this morning. For what? He questioned Baresi's decision. About the girl. Silence. Stupid. Fatal. Amber's coffee turned to ash in her mouth. Someone questioned bringing me into the meeting. And now they're gone. She set the cup down carefully, hands steady even as her stomach twisted. People are being punished because of me. Not because she'd done anything wrong, not because she'd asked to be protected, but because Aldo had decided she mattered. And in his world, that decision had consequences for everyone. She found him in the war room, not by accident. She'd started to learn his patterns, the times he reviewed operations, the moments he disappeared into the hidden space she now had access to. He looked up when she entered, unsurprised. "You heard?" he said, not a question. "About DeMarco." "Yes." Aldo set down the file he'd been reading. And I want to understand." Amber crossed her arms, forcing herself to stay calm. "You claimed me in front of your people. Someone questioned it. Now they're gone." "Yes." "Did you kill them?" "No, I removed them from my employ." Aldo's voice remained even. "There is a difference." "Is there?" "In my world? Yes." He leaned back slightly. "DeMarco is alive, relocated. He will not return. But he will continue breathing. Because he only questioned me." "Yes." Amber processed that. "And if he'd done more?" "Then the outcome would have been different." The clinical delivery made it worse. She moved closer to the desk, staring at the maps and files spread across its surface. "You said claiming me meant protection. You didn't say it meant displacing violence onto other people. I told you there would be a cost. For me, not for them. The cost is always shared, Amber." Aldo's dark eyes locked onto hers. "When I claim someone, I am stating they are under my authority. That makes them valuable, and value in this world invites testing. So people will keep testing, keep questioning, until they learn not to." "And how many people have to be removed before that happens?" Aldo's expression didn't shift. "As many as necessary." Amber wanted to argue, wanted to tell him this was wrong, that she wasn't worth the upheaval, that she'd never asked for protection that came with collateral damage, but she'd be lying. She had asked. Maybe not explicitly, but the moment she'd taken the key, the moment she'd stayed, the moment she'd sent him that file, she'd chosen this, and Aldo never pretended the choice was clean. "You regret it," he said quietly. "I regret that other people are paying for your decision." "My decision to protect you?" "Yes." "Then you misunderstand the situation." Aldo stood, moving around the desk with that same controlled inevitability. "I did not claim you to protect you from my world. I claimed you because you were already in it. The only question was whether you would be marked as mine, or left unmarked for others to use." Amber's breath hitched. "That's not—" "It is exactly that." He stopped close enough for her to see the faint tension in his jaw. "The moment you saw this room, you became leverage. Against me, against my operation. Unclaimed, you would have been taken within days, questioned. Tortured for information you do not even fully possess. And claimed? Claimed, you are untouchable, because touching you means declaring war on me." His voice dropped. DeMarco was removed because he failed to understand that. Others will follow until the lesson is learned. Amber stared at him. "So I'm a symbol. You are protected. Those aren't the same thing." In my world, they are identical. The silence that followed was suffocating. Amber forced herself to breathe, to think past the anger and guilt and the creeping realization that Aldo was right. She was safer now, but safety had never been simple. "What happens next?" she asked quietly. "That depends on you." "How?" Aldo moved back to the desk, retrieved something from the drawer. A folder. He set it in front of her. "You have two options," he said. Amber opened the folder. Inside were documents, legal papers, financial transfers, new identity credentials, and two sets. "The first option," Aldo continued, "is that you stay, fully, not as staff, not as an observer. You become part of the operation. You are given authority, resources, and access. You will be trained, protected, and integrated into the structure I have built." Amber's throat went dry. "And the second?" "You leave, with a new identity, financial security, and relocation to a city of your choosing. You will never return here, never contact anyone from this life, and you will be monitored, at a distance, to ensure you remain safe." "Monitored." "Yes." "Forever." "Yes." Amber looked at the two sets of documents. One path kept her here, visible, dangerous. The other sent her away, hidden, still controlled. "These aren't real choices," she said. "They are the only choices I can offer." "Why?" "Because you know too much to be free, and I care too much to let you be harmed." Aldo's voice remained calm. "Absolute. So you choose. Stay under my name and protection, or leave with resources and permanent consequences." "What consequences?" "If you leave, you sever all ties. To me, to this place, to the work you have seen." He paused. "And if you are ever compromised, I will not be able to intervene without exposing everything." Amber's stomach dropped. "So if I leave and someone finds me, you will be on your own." "That's not protection." "No, it is survival." Aldo's gaze held hers. "I cannot protect what I do not claim, and I will not claim what does not choose to stay." The weight of that landed like concrete. Amber stared at the folder. At the two futures laid out in black and white, both dangerous, both irrevocable. "How long do I have to decide?" she asked. "Until tomorrow morning." "That's not enough time. It is all the time I can give." Aldo's expression didn't soften. "My enemies are watching, Amber. They saw me claim you. If you leave, they will assume you know secrets worth extracting. If you stay, they will assume you are protected for a reason. Either way, I'm a target." "Yes. So I'm choosing which kind of target I want to be." "Essentially." Amber closed the folder, looked at Aldo, really looked at him, at the man who'd orchestrated every moment since she'd found that door, who'd tested her, protected her, claimed her without asking, who was now giving her the only real choice he could. "What do you want me to choose?" she asked quietly. Aldo's jaw tightened, just barely. "I want you to choose the option that keeps you alive," he said. "Beyond that, the decision is yours." He moved toward the door, then stopped without turning back. "Choose carefully, Amber," he said. "Both cost blood, but only one costs mine." The door closed, and Amber was left alone with two futures, and less than 24 hours to decide which one she could survive. Amber didn't sleep. She sat in the East Wing bedroom that had become hers, staring at the two folders laid out on the desk like competing futures. Leave, stay, run, commit, safety, danger. Except neither was actually safe, and neither was actually free. By the time dawn crept through the windows, Amber had made her decision. Not through fear, not through hope, through clarity. She found Aldo in the war room at 6 a.m. He looked like he hadn't slept either. Jacket discarded, sleeves rolled to his elbows, files spread across the desk, in patterns only he understood. He glanced up when she entered, expression unreadable. "You decided," he said. "Not a question." Amber crossed to the desk and set down one of the folders, the relocation documents. Aldo's gaze dropped to them, then returned to her face. Waiting. "I'm not leaving," Amber said quietly. Something shifted in his expression. Relief? Maybe satisfaction. Hard to tell with a man who controlled every micro-expression like a weapon. "Why?" he asked. "Because leaving doesn't actually keep me safe. It just moves the danger somewhere you can't reach." Amber paused. "And because I've spent my entire life running from things I was afraid of, I'm tired of running. Staying here means accepting risk you cannot control." "I know. It means trusting me with your life." "I know that too." Aldo studied her with that unnerving focus. "What changed?" "Nothing changed. I just stopped lying to myself." Amber met his gaze. "You said claiming me meant protection, but it also meant I mattered, and I've spent so long believing I didn't matter to anyone that when you said I did—" She stopped, swallowed. "I wanted to believe you. And now I do." The silence that followed was absolute. Aldo stood slowly, moving around the desk with that same controlled inevitability. He stopped close enough for Amber to see the faint tension in his jaw, the way his hands stayed carefully at his sides. "If you stay," he said quietly, "there is no halfway. No trial period. You commit fully. To this work, to this life, to me. I understand." "Do you?" His voice dropped. "Because once I integrate you into this operation, you become part of it, permanently. There will be no safe exit, no clean break. You will be bound to me in ways that cannot be undone." Amber's pulse kicked. "Is that a warning or a promise?" "Both." She should have been terrified, should have recognized this for what it was: control wrapped in protection, obsession disguised as security. But she'd seen the hidden room, she'd read the files, she'd watched Aldo dismantle threats with surgical precision while keeping the innocent safe. He wasn't asking her to trust blindly, he was asking her to choose knowingly. "Then I'm staying," Amber said, "fully." Aldo's breath released slowly, almost imperceptibly. Then he reached out, deliberately, giving her time to pull away, and took her hand. His palm was warm, steady, certain. "Then you are mine," he said quietly, "and I am yours, in every way that matters." It wasn't a declaration, it was a fact. The integration happened immediately. Within hours, Amber's status shifted from observer to operative. Her access expanded. Locks that had been closed opened. Files she'd only glimpsed became hers to read. Aldo didn't make announcements, didn't explain the change to his people. He simply repositioned her. In meetings, she sat beside him. In hallways, his men stepped aside for her. In rooms where decisions were made, her presence became expected. No one questioned it, because questioning Aldo's decisions had consequences they'd all learned to avoid. And Amber, sharp, observant, quietly competent, proved she belonged there. The private claim came later, not in public, not in front of witnesses, in the hidden room late at night, when the mansion had gone silent. Aldo stood at the desk, reviewing maps she now understood intimately. Amber entered without knocking, permission granted through access, not words. He looked up, waited. "I have a question," she said. "Ask." "Why me?" Amber crossed her arms. "You've had staff before, people who saw too much." "Why didn't you just remove me like you did DeMarco?" Aldo set down the file he'd been holding. "Because you did not see too much. You saw exactly what you needed to see." "That's not an answer. It is the only one I have." He moved toward her, slow and deliberate. "I have spent years building this operation, hunting predators, protecting people who cannot protect themselves, and I have done it alone. Because trusting someone with this work means trusting them with everything. And you trust me? I am learning to. Amber's breath caught. That's not. I have been watching you for months, Amber, long before you found that door. Aldo stopped close enough for her to feel the heat of him. I watched you notice things others missed. I watched you care when caring was inconvenient. I watched you choose integrity over safety. So you decided I was useful. I decided you were worth protecting. His voice dropped. And then you proved you were worth keeping. The distinction landed like a vow. Aldo reached up slowly, his hand cupping her face with a gentleness that felt almost foreign coming from him. I do not do this lightly, he said. I do not claim people. I do not let anyone close. But you... He paused. You walked into my world by accident and chose to stay on purpose. That matters. To you or to the operation? To me. The honesty gutted her. Amber leaned into his touch, just slightly, just enough to signal what words couldn't. Aldo's thumb brushed across her cheekbone, once, deliberately. Then he kissed her, not urgently, not desperately, with the same controlled precision he brought to everything, measured, intentional, devastating. Amber's hands found his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart beneath expensive fabric and dangerous control. When he pulled back, his forehead rested against hers. You are mine now, he whispered, in every way that matters. Do you understand? Yes. And you accept that? Yes. Then there is no going back. I know. Aldo's hand slid to the back of her neck, holding her there, not possessively, but anchored. I will protect you, he said quietly. I will keep you safe. But I will not lie to you. This life is dangerous, and being mine makes you a target. I know. And you choose it anyway. I choose you, Amber corrected. The danger just comes with it. Something cracked in his expression, relief, maybe wonder. Like he'd expected her to run and was still surprised she hadn't. Then we build this together, he said. Together, Amber agreed. 6 months later, Amber stood in the war room, reviewing files with the same focused calm she'd once reserved for cleaning schedules. The mansion had become home, the work had become purpose, and Aldo, controlled, dangerous, obsessively protective Aldo, had become hers in ways she still didn't fully understand. He entered the room without knocking, crossed to where she stood, and set a folder on the desk. New target, he said. Amber opened it, scanned the contents. Trafficking network, Eastern Seaboard. Yes. Timeline? 3 weeks. She nodded. I'll start the research. Aldo's hand came to rest on the small of her back, a touch so familiar now it felt like breathing. You did not hesitate, he observed. Should I have? Most people would. I'm not most people. His mouth curved, just barely. No, you are not. Amber leaned back slightly, letting herself rest against him for just a moment, stealing comfort in the space between danger and decision. Do you ever regret it? She asked quietly. Keeping me? Every day. She stiffened. What? I regret that keeping you means you are in danger, that protecting you requires constant vigilance, that loving you makes you a target I can never fully eliminate. Aldo turned her to face him. But I do not regret you. I never will. Loving you. The words settled over her like a brand. I love you too, Amber said, even though you're terrifying and controlling and you use people as chess pieces. I am aware. And I'm staying anyway. I know. She smiled. Good. Aldo kissed her, brief, restrained, perfect. Then he released her and returned to the desk. Business as usual, danger as constant, love as inevitable. Amber turned back to the file, mind already cataloging routes and vulnerabilities and ways to dismantle the network before it could hurt anyone else. She'd stumbled into this life by accident, but she'd chosen to stay on purpose. And some doors once opened were never meant to close. Amber no longer wanted them to. If this story kept you hooked, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more intense Mafia romances. And before you go, rate this story from 1 to 10 in the comments. I'm reading everyone.